Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about the iZotope Trash 2 delay module. So this is a pretty cool module. It's very quickly becoming one of my favorite delays, and what makes it so cool are these different modes. So a delay is pretty simple. You have a signal that you put in there, and then you send it through a feedback loop, and that will recreate that signal. And there's a whole bunch of things you can do during this feedback loop to make it sound different, and it sort of makes the characteristic delays sound the way they do. So we have like a tape delay, a tape/tube, an analog, lo-fi, broken bit, and then just a regular digital delay. Yeah, we're all familiar with this. So if we turn the feedback up, we'll get some delays. Now, delays have a history of being able to do some pretty cool things, because if you delay something super quick, we can manipulate the way the spectrum, we can manipulate the timbre of an instrument quite dramatically, and we can also use it to create a sense of space. So I'll try and give examples of both of those things as we get going here. But right now you can see up here, you might be wondering, what is this graph thing? We did not cover this. Well, up here you have a filter. And up here, down here, you have a way to see the spectrum. So this first hit is your dry signal. So if I move the dry signal, you see that this changes. So this is the dry signal. And then all subsequent hits are considered the wet signal, and they can be controlled and added by adding feedback. So you see we have feedback. If I hit a button, you will notice that there will be these red lines that represents the volume of that particular moment. So right now, what we have right here is there will be the direct sound, and then we're going to wait somewhere around 75 milliseconds. Well, 69 milliseconds actually for the delay. And there we will see a red line pop up on this delay. And that's pretty quick. So let's make it a little bit longer. Let's make it 1,000. So over a second later. And you see that red line that pops up there? That is our signal. So if we turn up our feedback and take our delay time down, we can see that it's traveling through that amount of time. So if we turn this up just outrageously, and we want to be kind of careful, but if I hit it, yeah, so things get pretty messy. And yeah, I got to be careful because the delay, the feedback in particular, behaves very differently on these different modes. So on the host, you have these different values. You can go through and make them, 64th notes or whatever. You can do I believe this is quarter notes. And then you have these like times values, which are interesting deals. Turn the feedback up on these. So you can mess with those if you want. I tend to settle on 4 for my ratio. Sometimes I'll do others. And then the host sync, this gives you access to it in milliseconds. So you can just change things. So you're like, 0.7 milliseconds. Or I believe it's in milliseconds. The amount that will task, whatever. I believe it's in milliseconds because it'd be ridiculous. There's no way this is 100 seconds. So that'd be like, we'd still be waiting. On the feedback side of things, this controls the amount of feedback. So right now there's only one initial hit. With feedback, we get more hits. And the delay between those hits can be altered. And so that's what's going on there. Now, over here, so we're going to dig through these here in a second. I'm going to leave it in this sort of a mode because we're going to be looking at timbre changes. The one with the host sync is really straightforward. I mean, you just set the ratio and get a good delay going. If we go to like tape, watch how different it sounds. If you go up and if you turn the feedback up, it'll respond extraordinarily differently. A digital delay will not sound like that. So it's very different sounds, especially when you go into the feedback. You may consider automating some of these parameters up and down to create some pretty smooth intros and stuff. Now we have trash and width. Trash it's basically gonna saturate your signal. And this is also going to help feedback out quite a bit as far as it looping back like that. So you're going to want to be careful with this. But it will add that extra little bit of grit to your signal. This may or may not be something you want. Width would just make your stereo image wider or not wider. So you want a wide stereo image. And this only applies to the delayed signal. And then finally, we have dry and wet. So how much of the dry signal versus the wet signal. So you can also see that the graph also represents these changes. up here, you can actually filter your sound, and it will only filter your delayed sound. So your initial sound will be left alone. You can filter out the delayed sound though. If you aren't satisfied with this filter, you can always come into the graph and reorganize where this happens, and you can be good to go there. Now, let's do some examples of this thing. Okay, so the most commonly they're used in like some sort of an ARP thing like this, right? Where you go up and down and up and down. You do something like this. And these are all slightly off just a bit. Cool. My bad. That's pretty straightforward. Let's try some different modules. So you see there's like subtle differences between them. As soon as you start throwing trash into it, they become quite obvious. They really begin to shine when you start messing with basses though. So let's get into one of those. So let's really quick just make a bass. So I'm just going to turn on the cube, leave that alone, turn the pluck off, leave it on legato, down. And on the wave shaper inside trash 2, I'm going to turn that on. Cool. I'm going to take down the feedback and take it off of host sync, and I want to see this. Okay, so when you respond to things, so there's this thing called the Haas effect, and if things happen within like this about 20 millisecond window, it can change depending on your sound. But if you if you add things in on that window, they will not sound like separate sounds like delays. They'll just sound like part of the sound. And so you can manipulate the sound quite heavily using this. Also very useful for adding a sense of space. But right now, that's what we got. And you can see our red lines. I'm going to turn up the feedback a little bit. And this is cool. I love the way it visualizes this. So we can take our trash downer up. But check it out. If we drive this up a bit more, not too much, and we can change the width of it. And let's go to take. And by changing this delay amount, we can change things quite drastically. So you can mess with it and really get a large variety of sounds out of this thing. Let's also turn on the convolution in the filter. Now this is the same sound I had from earlier. I just modified Harmer along the way. So as far as I believe it was like 2 tutorials ago, we were going over the convolution engine. And let's like try out like an analog sound. Or an analog delay, I mean. That's so cool. Okay, so anyways, you can do that. You can also try and get a sense of space out of this thing. And to do that, it's essentially like sort of a similar combination of things, but you turn your feedback up. You're going to need to mess with your delay modules. Take the trash down, turn the delay up. If you move things in real time, it's going to do weird things. You can also see those red lines just hopping along down the delay train. And you see that can add a nice sense of space. So let's go back to our first sound. So we'll turn off our distortion, turn off. I'm going to leave legato on, turn our pluck on, turn off the trash, the convolution, and you just get it. Sometimes this can be a lot cleaner than reverb because reverb will take up a lot of space. On this sort of a note, you're often gonna want to mess with things, and you may consider doing a ratio of like host sync it so that it's hidden in the beats so it can line up, and you'll get that sense. You'll notice things are getting quieter, but it's like a lot more subtle. Take this down, and we can do something like. So, just simple stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.